There is really no need to say that AI is all over the place right now. Yes, you can do silly things like generating pictures of Alex Honnold playing the banjo on the moon, for example. It looks pretty good, to be fair. Or you can ask ChatGPT to write the script for the next blockbuster climbing movie. But can AI really affect our beloved climbing? Most traditional climbers will probably cringe even just to the idea of somehow including AI in a pure sport. And after all, AI is the ultimate aid. That was too easy. But before you move on and click the dislike button, bear with me for a minute and you'll see that there actually is a place for AI in climbing and it's not aid. But let's start from the very beginning. AI is just a buzzword, a very wide umbrella term that covers a variety of different technologies that can be defined as artificial intelligence. But if we want to be more specific and technical, it's probably better to talk about things like machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, and so on. Each of these disciplines refer to a very specific research area where AI is involved to solve a very specific problem. For example, computer vision is a branch of AI that tries to understand images and videos to identify actions, objects, people, and so on. And this is a very strong simplification, but it basically tries to emulate human visions using computers and cameras. Natural language processing is instead what ChatGPT does. It's the branch of AI that allows computers to understand human language, and in particular ChatGPT is called a generative model, which means not only it understands language, but it's also able to generate it. But how does this all relate to climbing, apart from generating silly pictures of Alex Honnold hugging carrots? I think this one looks more like Tom Cruise than Alex Honnold. So let's set up this scenario. You go to your climbing gym for your usual session, you pick the orange route, tie in and simply start climbing. But what if you're colorblind and you cannot tell the green holes apart from the red ones? Or even worse, what if you're completely blind and you cannot see holes at all? Well, this is when AI can come and help us. In particular, the computer vision branch that I was talking about can be used to replace human vision with, well, computer vision. I recently came across this scientific paper from the University of Bath, published last year at the largest conference on human-computer interaction, or CHI. The paper is called Climb O Vision, a computer vision-driven sensory substitution device for rock climbing. Now, bear with me. Scientific papers are the best tool for discovering the newest and latest technologies that are being developed out there. But they're not written for the general public, they're mainly written for older researchers, and they use a very specific language that is technical and pretty difficult to understand for outsiders. And I mean, we know a thing or two about technical language in climbing when we're talking beta. Anyway, let's figure out how these researchers managed to use AI to help blind people climbing. The system is still at a very early stage of prototyping and consists of a camera, which is mounted on a helmet, which is connected to a laptop carried in a backpack. There is also an additional mouthpiece that goes on your tongue. And weird, I know, but let's see how this works. The basic principle is that the camera sees the wall for you, then the laptop identifies where the holes are, and the mouthpiece that goes in your tongue, well, that tells you where the holes are. But how does this all work? How can something in your mouth tell you the position of the holes? Well, this is very interesting, and it's something called sensory substitution, which is also in the title of the paper. And it's the idea that you can replace the loss of one sense, in this case sight, with a different sense, like touch, smell, or sound. In this research, they replace your eye with your tongue. The mouthpiece that they use is a device called Chulu Shield, and it promises to let you see using your tongue. Basically, it's a grid of small electric points that can be controlled by a computer. You can see what it looks like in this picture. Each of these small circles can send a super tiny shock to your tongue in a very specific spot. And because the tongue is very sensitive, at least before you start using this device, you should be able to tell exactly which spot is being activated and when. Now, with a bit of imagination, we can see how this is kind of similar to how our eye works as well. Bear with me. Our eyes see pictures, and pictures also look like grids. Look at this video, for example. If we stop it and we zoom in a lot, we can see the cells that compose the image, and these are like a grid. They are called pixels. Our brain captures the light from all these pixels, and it makes us see things. Now we can think of the grid of pixels in a similar way to the grid of small electric spots on the tongue device. So if you can transform a picture into small electric shocks on your tongue, the grid of shocks could kind of replace the image that you see with your eyes. And with a bit of training and getting used to, your brain could literally start seeing things using your tongue. But there is a big difference here, and that is that a picture contains millions of pixels, whereas the tongue device has got 18 different spots. How do you replace a million pixels with 18 spots on your tongue? And well, this is exactly where AI, or better computer vision, comes to help us. One particular branch of computer vision is called object detection. As the name says, this is a technique that allows a computer to see where specific objects are in a scene, in a picture. You probably experience this every time that you take a selfie with your phone. If you've ever noticed, a rectangle appears around your face. That is object detection, or better, face detection, but the idea is pretty much the same. You can also see it in action if you've got the Google Lens app. You can see here that if you take a picture of something, Google first uses object detection to understand where objects are, and then it understands what these objects are. A very similar system was also used in this ClimaVision paper. The camera on the helmet sees the climbing wall, and it sends images to the laptop, and then an object detection algorithm first tries to understand where the climbing holes are, and then it tries to classify them into different colors. In this case we have yellow, green, spotted, and so on. Once we know where the holes are, not only we can select only the ones that we're actually climbing and then ignoring the rest, but we can also place them on our tongue device to know where exactly they are, or roughly. The tongue device has a grid of 4x4 spots, so if we divide the camera image in the same way, then we can see which area of the image matches with which spot. For example, if we detect a climbing hold on the top right, we activate the top right electrode on the tongue, and so a super small shock will be sent to the top right area of our tongue. And if the hold is in the center, it activates the central electrode, and so on and so on. The idea is pretty sweet, but I'd love to know how it really tastes like. Unfortunately, there is no comment about that in the paper. They mention trying the whole system at the climbing wall, but they only comment on the computer vision part of it, and it seems like the algorithm is pretty good at understanding where the holes are, but it often mistakes them for the wrong color. To be fair, when my climbing gym set up a grey route next to a black one, I struggled myself to figure out which hole is which, so I couldn't really blame AI. The problem when you're using any AI algorithm is that you need to train it to make it understand your task. If you want your AI model to find holes, you need to give it thousands and thousands of images of holes and tell it where these holes are in the image. And then the more images you give it, the better it understands. So if you give it only images from the wall of one climbing gym, it might not work well if you try it in a different place, or even if they simply reset the wall. And this is something that the authors of the paper mentioned as well, describing it as one of the main limitations. Unfortunately, the researchers didn't try the device on actual blind people to see if it works, but like it's common in research, you first need to break down a problem into smaller tasks before you can figure out if something is even technically feasible. This technology is still in its infancy, and they're actually planning on testing this on blind people in the near future, and I'm really looking forward to see how it does. Now you must be wondering, why bother with this weird tongue system when you could simply use a voice or a sound to tell you where the holes are? And that's true. There are actually similar systems for archery, for example. They use sound as a form of feedback to help you to understand where the target is. But in climbing, it would be harder because you don't really have a single hold as a target. You want to see all the holes around you so that you can decide which one to go for. And while you could use voice to tell you where the holes are, This would easily become overwhelming considering how many holds and how many types and everything around you. As you can see, there are applications for AI in climbing, but this paper is only one of the many dozens that are available out there, and they all try to use technology and AI to assist climbers or developing of our sport. How do you think AI is going to make the biggest impact in our sport? Let me know down in the comments. If you like this video and you want me to continue looking at technologies connected with climbing, let me know in the comments below and I'll do more videos like this one. If you hated this video and you want me to stop, leave a comment below with a short Python script to calculate 1000 digits of pi. Thank you for watching.